Attention, il accélère. Garde-le, hein, tu le gardes, tu le gardes.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our live of the finish of the 2026 Vendée Arctique race. Looking at the first images of the new race leader. This is Ambrogio Beccaria from Italy, who has just appeared on our images, having basically had a bit of a mixed race up to this point, but due to the weather conditions that we've had over the last few hours, with the whole fleet stopping and starting as it sails towards the convergence point of the finish line in front of Les Sables-d'Olonne in the west of France, into a big hole of wind, allowing everybody to catch up with the leader and now second place boat, Sam Goodchild's Massif. And for the last few hours, the situation has been a bit of frustration, certainly for the boat that has led the entire way around. Now we have got Alla Grande Mapai from Italy that has been leading basically for the last 3 or 4 hours of the race. Has managed just to keep the boat going a little bit more quickly in these super light conditions. And as we can see here with these incredible images, just see the light on the horizon of Les Sables-d'Olonne. We're just a few hundred meters from the finish line now. And this boat has managed to slip into the lead and is in very good position now to cross the finish line in first place and win the 2026 Vendée Arctique. I'd be interesting to see what Sam has to say about this at the end, but there's no question that this race has been dominated by Massif the whole way around, and there we can just see on board Alla Grande Mapai. This is the old Vulnerable, the boat that Thomas Rion sailed in the last Vendée Globe, and he's been leading. We can just see the orientation now there, the finish line just slightly to the right of the boat. The start line is just below them, and Les Sables-d'Olonne just above them. Just see through the porthole on the port side of the boat some lights on board are lit up so that you can see what he's doing. Very calm conditions here, and he'll be pretty excited by this, but also very nervous that he stops dead just before the finish, and we can see that he's slowing down again a little bit more now in this. Every little puff of wind that comes is helpful for him. We can see also that it's not exactly flat water. The boat's moving around quite a lot in this. So this man, Ambrogio Beccaria from Italy, has been racing this boat for a bit over a year now, and the boat was, as I said earlier, was the boat Vulnerable that Thomas Rion sailed in the last Vendée Globe for the first part of the 2025 season. The two of them sailed together on it for the last race that it was called Vulnerable. It was the Round Britain and Ireland race, and then unfortunately they were leading the race. I think they were leading with second in the race, and they had a problem with the mast at the top of Scotland and had to retire from the race. And then they went on and did the Round Europe race. Had an accident on the very first start of that with Holcim PRB. Some incredible images. Oh, look at that! It is light. You can see the boats around them, shining light on the boat. Very light. And anyway, so then it did the Round Europe race, which after its miracle repair after the first accident, it sailed all the way around to so that accident happened in Kiel in Germany. The first leg was to Portsmouth in the UK, which they couldn't couldn't sail because of the damage that they'd done, but they managed to get to Portsmouth in time to restart and keep going on the next legs all the way around. They eventually won their first leg into Genoa, which was, I think, the fourth leg. So it went from Kiel to Portsmouth to Porto to Cartagena in Spain, and then to Nice in France, and it won that leg. And then there was another leg to the finish in Tivat in Montenegro. And then it's the boat that Thomas and it was now called Alagrande Mapai at this stage, and then he did the Café Law, Transat Café Law with it. And then it's been in the shed for a big refit and a new paint job this winter, and it just came out just literally 10 days before the start of this race. And this is, although it's not Ambrogio's first solo race, it's his first solo race in this boat, and so he's sailed pretty conservatively for the first 2 days. He actually led off the start from here, again in light conditions, but then the pecking order of the race really set itself up, and we had Sam Goodchild sailed away into a big lead and has led basically until a few hours ago. But it's very significant here because clearly this has suddenly become a very complex light airs race in a sloppy sea, and the Italian has shown that he knows how to make his boat go well in the light stuff, which is obviously a trait of Italian sailors. Are very good in the light stuff. They get to sail in those sort of conditions a lot more. So yes, you can just see the lights of Les Sables-d'Olonne in the background there now as we approach the finish line. Big Jenica up, the quad that'll be, making the boat go. That's the maximum amount of sail area in this. Interestingly, the foils retracted. You see the big foils out the side of the boat, but both rudders are in the water. These boats have the ability to pop a windward rudder out of the water to remove sweaty surface area. But on this occasion, he's left both rudders down. He doesn't want to disturb anything. We can now just see him moving around there inside the cockpit. Here he comes. Last check on everything, make sure he's lined up for the finish line. Last few moments of pain and stress as to whether he can get this to where it needs to be, or whether he's got one more maneuver to do before he crosses the finish line. Second place, Sam Goodchild, is only a matter of miles behind at this stage, but a matter of miles in these light conditions means a certain number of minutes, even as much as an hour, potentially. And in third place currently is Violette d'Orange in the Initiative Coeur, who took over third place from the beleaguered Keguiner Petit Prince, and she was sailed also by Elodie Bonfou, and she has had sailed an incredible race all the way up to an error that she made coming through the North Passage, the North Channel, north of Ireland, where she sailed into the Forbidden Zone and was awarded a 12-hour penalty, which she has been taking for the last few hours. Here we have Ambrogio waving at us from the... We can't quite believe what's about to happen, I should think. And I'm sure he's absolutely exhausted, because the last day has been, well, the last couple of days has been extremely complex in the light airs that they have managed to find themselves in, unfortunately, all the way from about halfway down the Irish coast. Interestingly, the leaders took two different sides. The first two boats went down the Irish Sea, leaving Ireland to their west, and Ambrogio went out around the outside in a potentially less risky route, around the west coast of Ireland, so leaving Ireland to his east. There we are. A lot of noise. Yeah. Very, very close to the finish line now. In the background, you can hear the instructions from the French driver of the rib that is filming this, giving us a little commentary as to how far they've got left to go before they cross the finish line. Yeah, so Ambrogio sailed down the west coast of Ireland, which looked to be a longer route and a lot less stable for wind. And anyway, he caught up quite a lot there, but it really was the part across the approach across the St. George's Channel and across the Bay of Biscay where he did most of his damage. He basically sailed up towards the boat that had been in the lead for all of the time, that kept sailing into zones of no wind, and so they'd be just miles apart from each other, and the boat behind would be doing 15 knots and the boat ahead would be doing 5 knots. And eventually they pulled up beside each other, and I should think they were probably literally in sight of each other at one stage late yesterday afternoon, just a couple of miles apart. And from then until now, it's been a little stopping and starting, and every little bit of wind that has appeared, one boat caught it a bit better than the other, and that is the boat that you're looking at here. Leaning against the J3 jib, you can see furled up there. The shore crew are out there on a rib waiting for him to cross the finish line so that they can get up on board with him and congratulate him. Just a few minutes now from the finish line for his first ever solo win, his first ever win in short-handed sailing in Waka. He won a leg into Genoa last year, fully crewed. That's the difference with the. Here we are. A significant moment, really, because Ambrogio represents the next generation of Vendée Globe skippers, the Mocha 60 skippers, and very, very talented sailors. Had a huge amount of success in class 40s, and this is his first effort in a Mocha 60 sailing solo. We have the Route de Rhum coming up later in the season, which is probably the second most important event after the Vendée Globe in French offshore sailing. And he'll now certainly be putting himself from an outsider's point of view into one of the favourites. Clearly Massif is still a very big favourite, but there are others as well that haven't been involved in this race, like Jerry Bayou Charal, which has just also been through a massive refit this winter. So this is an Antoine Coche designed Mocha 60, and as I said, it was sailed by Tom Orion in the last Vendée Globe. It had a few issues in that race with sails and things like that, but it has proved to be an incredibly quick boat over its career thus far. It's still a relatively modern boat, relatively recent boat. It's the most recent generation. There's ironically on Thursday this week, in 2 days' time, there will be another generation, the first of the next generation of Mocha 60s will be launched here in Lorient, which is a development of this boat. So we'll be able to see the modifications and ideas that have come to the next generation based on this boat.
Vendée Arctique, Les Sables-d'Olonne 2026. Un grand bravo à toi et top!
There we are. He's crossed the finish line.
Super! Colle un petit peu, Pascal, t'es loin là. T'es loin, Pascal. Hein? Mais quel team de quoi? Non mais d'accord, mais... Mais la team, elle est pas là du tout, là. Tiens, colle un peu, s'il te plaît, Pascal. T'es trop loin, là. Non, 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 mais t'es beaucoup trop loin, là. Non, mais, s'il te plaît.
So there we are.
Non, pas du tout, non.
Ambrogio Beccari
Non,
crossed
non,
the
non,
finish
non,
line
sûr.
first of
Rapproche-toi un
the
petit peu de lui.
2026
On va faire la montée de l'équipe.
Vendée Arctique race. They left here a few days ago and have been all the way up to the Arctic Circle, which was the top of the course, I should say, top of the world, top of the course. Very, very far north. They were all complaining of the cold and the fog and the damp and the wet. It's a lot further north than they go south in the Vendée Globe. They just had to go and find the closest point, or the point that suited them to cross the Arctic Circle. So not all of the boats crossed in the same place. They weren't very far apart, as it turned out. And then as soon as they crossed that line, quick 180-degree turn and race back to here, to the finish line here in Les Sables-d'Olonne. Here we have his Saltport team, Brogio's team of shore crew, and they will be going aboard. You can just see that on board there, Ambrogio has cleared the line, and he is furling up his Jennica, and the support boat is going to go alongside now.
Lisa. Si je peux avoir les embrassades, Pascal, je pense qu'on va les avoir.
Bravo, bravo. Vive la Vendée et vive la Vendée Arctique.
C'est parfait, Pascal.
First members of shore crew coming aboard.
Parfait. C'est dommage ça. C'est dommage. C'est dommage. Ah, on les voit pas là.
Fortunately, they're all inside, so we can't really see what's going on, but there'll be a certain amount of congratulating each other in there, the shore team. These modern IMOCAs have got a solid coach roof and do an awful lot of their sailing from effectively an indoors position to protect them from high-speed sailing and tons and tons of water that often come across the deck. Makes them safe, keeps them very dry, but unfortunately it inhibits our view at times like this as to the emotion being shown by the skipper to his shore crew when they come aboard to help him get the boat under control and sort things out. So you can see, even though it's this dark, we can see quite how calm it is. There really is very little wind.
Vas-y, ouais. Non, mets ton nez à droite. Ouais, voilà, super. Sur les zones. Sur les zones, Lisa. Très bien.
So Les Sables-d'Olonne, the Finnish port, which is just you can see in the background there, the lights of Les Sables-d'Olonne, this French seaside resort and fishing port, has got a very famous channel of water which you need to deliver up to get into the port of Les Sables-d'Olonne. It's about 1 kilometer long, but regrettably it is subject to the tide, and when the tide is out, a boat like an Imoca 60, one of these boats that has a 4.5 meter draft, cannot get up the channel. So all of the boats that finish now have got to wait until 7:30 before they can go up the channel. So the crew that have come on board, they'll be congratulating now the man in the red jacket is the one of the umpires of the race, who will be on board now to go and check various seals and make sure that everything is check the number of sails that are on board, and validate 2 or 3 elements of equipment legality.
Non, pas encore.
Beginning to settle in now as to what he's just done. This is an incredible result for the young Italian sailor. And yeah, I'm trying to think, other than Sam Goodchild, there haven't been that many non-French sailor winners in Imoca races. But as I said, this new generation of foreign sailors is really beginning to dominate, and this is just another one. So a very small guy, Ambrogio, full of character. He will be absolutely exhausted. I'd be very keen to know how much sleep he's had over the last 2 days. Earlier in the race, on the way up the Irish coast, on the way to the turn mark at the Arctic Circle, he was sailing at high speed, and he hit a fishing line or a fishing net, which stopped the boat dead, and he had to drop the sails and go over the side to swim down to the bottom of the quay with a knife and cut the fishing net away. We were all very worried. I remember watching the tracker with some of my colleagues in the Imoca office here in Lorient. With updates every hour, we saw that he'd been going very fast, and then suddenly it stopped. Was doing 1 knot, 1.5 knots, and usually that means the rig has gone over the side and there's nothing making the boat go forwards. And we just sat there and waited for the next pass to come, and then the next pass came through an hour later on the tracker, and we could see that he was back up to 25 knots. So, but you could see the squiggle of his course, where he'd had to go around in circles a little bit to try and unravel himself from the fishing net. And anyway, well, a video came ashore a few hours later of his adventures over the side with a knife between his teeth as he went over the side and cut it away, and some footage from the keel camera to show the net caught around the keel. So that certainly shook him quite a lot, there's no question about that, but he made his move back up the fleet quite nicely as well, closing in on the leaders as he approached past the Faroe Islands to the west of the Faroe Islands and approached the Arctic Circle to the east of Iceland to stay in contention. And then waited for his moment, and his moment has come really on the way back down from this far north, sailing back south. Obviously the leader at that stage had almost 200-mile lead on him, which was Sam Goodchild sailing Massif Santé Prévoyance, and he was faced with a decision as to which side of Ireland to leave as he came back south, and Sam Goodchild and Elodie Bonnefoot chose to come down the Irish Sea. Some people say it was a higher risk choice because of the narrow corridor of water that is the Irish Sea for boats that are sailing at 25 knots. There's a lot more traffic in the Irish Sea than there is on the west coast of Ireland. There's a lot less safety in terms of being able to run away from the shore, because you've got the shore on both sides of you. a lot more sandbanks, a lot more tide. And as Elodie Bonfou has found out, there was a lot more restricted sailing areas, and she sailed into a TSS and traffic separation zone, the forbidden zone, and got a 12-hour penalty. And so that has knocked her back now to 4th place on the water. She's had to carry out a 12-hour penalty, which basically means stopping for 12 hours and then restarting again from the point that you stopped at. Meanwhile, Ambrogio took the outside route, and interestingly, all of the other boats in the race behind him also took the outside route, sailing to the west of Ireland. And the leaders then all converged in the middle of the Bay of Biscay yesterday afternoon, all within a few miles of each other, and sailed into this area of no wind, which couldn't have been avoided because the finish line was in the middle of it. And here we have the outcome. So second place, Sam Goodchild is currently 5 miles from the finish, doing 8 knots, so good half an hour, 40 minutes still before he gets to the finish line, unless he accelerates some more, but he also has another maneuver to do, and he's currently just positioning himself between the finish line and the 3rd place boat, which is Violette d'Orange, sailing Initiative Coeur, who is a further 7 miles back. So in the next couple of hours we can expect to see 2 more boats finishing. All happening at night, always happens at night. When everybody else should be in bed asleep. It's always kind of hard to do these finishes at night because of the light situation. I think we're going to have cameraman on board to interview Ambrogio very shortly and give us his first reactions from winning this race. So 2026 Vendée Arctique race, if you just joined us, has been won by this boat, à la Grande Mapai. Crossed the finish line about 5-7 minutes ago now.
Ouais, mais tu sais, il y a Christophe qui va grimper là. Une fois que Christophe est grimpé, on pourra bouger sur le deuxième.
Fourth place right now is Francesca Klapšić from United States and Italy, another Italian sailor in the race, sailing a boat called 11th Hour Racing. This is the same boat. She sailed to 2nd place in last year's Transat Café L'Or with another foreign sailor, Will Harris, who the two of them had been sailing this boat when in its previous guise when it was called Malizia. Currently in 5th place is Association Petit Prince Keguinière, Elodie Bonfou, who obviously has lost a lot of time carrying a lot of distance and allowed a lot of her competitors to pass her. She carried out her 12-hour penalty. And then 6th is Nicolas Destet, sailing Café Joyeux with the first and only daggerboard boat. That's a boat that is quite an old boat. It's not equipped with foils, but is an incredibly quick boat in these light conditions. And it has 2 boats behind it, so 2 modern foiling boats are behind the daggerboard boat, both local boats. In 7th place, April Marine, sailed by Arnaud Boissière. And in seventh place, April Marine by Arnaud Boissière, a cherche co-partenaire, so he's looking for a second sponsor. And in eighth place, Manuel Cousin, sailing Coup de Pouce, who ironically is sailing the seventh place skipper's boat that he sailed in the last Vendée Globe. So being a certain amount of musical chairs of boats and owners and stuff after every Vendée Globe, boats go on the market, and skippers who are either new to it or have sailed a lower tech boat or an older boat would upgrade themselves to a more modern boat and try and match the performance of where the boat should be. But this race has served as the first solo race since the last Vendée Globe. It's been interesting, not for two reasons, not only to see the new breed of solo skippers and how they've got on, but interestingly also to see the skippers who are not here. I cited some of them earlier. Well, Jeremy Bayou and Charal, the boat has just come out from a big refit, and so it wasn't ready to do this race, but is now back in the water and will be competing this summer. Then Thomas Rion, whose new boat, the first of this next generation, is being launched in Lorient on Thursday. And Johan Richomme, who sailed to the second place in the last Vendée Globe on board Paprec Arkea, he sold his boat, and that boat has become MACSF, which is the only boat that started this race and did not finish this race. Unfortunately, he had a failure of his J3 forestay fitting, and the forestay came out, and he decided more prudent to retire than to continue on. So MACSF, sailed by Corentin Oro, came back to Lorient a few days ago, and the boat was in perfect condition except for one structural bonding element at the bottom of the forestay that had come apart, which is kind of strange because it's just been through a very big refit, and wasn't a new boat. This is the boat that came second in the Vendée Globe and had had a very successful career up to that point. Ironically, is the sister ship to this boat that we see here. So they'll be pleased to see that their boat is still quick. And then some of the other skippers that I haven't mentioned. There's new boats being built for Boris Herman. His new boat will be launched in a few weeks' time now here in Lorient as well. The new Malizia 4, I think it's going to be called. And also next year there'll be another couple of boats. Johan Richomme is getting a new Paprec, and Louis Berrier is getting a new Paprec. There are plenty others as well, but the other one that's missing from here, which is active this summer, that is be sailing the transatlantic race, the Tour Atlantic it's called, from New York to Lorient, starts in September. Sailed fully crewed with 2 men and 2 women on board. Oliver Here's boat, which is Justine Metro's old teamwork. Justine Metro sold that boat to him earlier this year, and he's refitted it. And Justine Metro has got a new boat being built for her, which will be ready next year, and so has Sébastien Simon, who also has a new boat in build right now, which will be launched next year. So it's interesting because we all know that these boats, hugely complex that they are, they take quite a lot of time to get sorted when they're new, to make them reliable and let the skipper get confident with how to use them and get the most out of them. And the philosophical decision as to whether to buy a really good second-hand boat or develop a brand new boat, other than the cost implications associated with it, are that the sailors who get to sail their boats longer and longer get more and more confident, and the boats become more reliable, and this all plays very much into their hands, certainly for a first Vendée Globe campaign, whereas those that have already done one campaign are more confident in their ability to develop and their shore team's ability to make the boat reliable, and so they choose to design and build a new boat as late as possible, which is 2 years before the race. So we may have a bit of an interview going on here now that we can listen into the first comments of Ambrogio having won this race.
Oh putain. En fait, il faudrait que leur minette marche pas, il faut qu'on éclaire l'interview. Ouais. Ouais. C'est pas facile, Pascal, mais faut qu'on éclaire l'interview. Leur minette à bord elle marche pas. Si tu peux t'approcher un petit peu plus, pour qu'on puisse éclairer leur interview en fait.
Tu peux parler au gars là-bas?
Quel gars là?
Ouais.
Non.
So some discussions about getting light to the interview so we can keep him lit. So the big spotlight is on the rib from which this is filmed.
Ah mais il est là, il a quelle heure filé la minette? C'est Lorenzo! T'auras pas une minette à leur prêter?
Can you give them the light for the interview?
On éclaire ça pour l'instant, on éclaire.
Si je gueule, ils vont m'entendre.
Je suis pas sûr, c'est pas facile. C'est pas facile du tout. C'est bon, il va éclairer le gars ou pas? C'est bon là, il y a pas. C'est bon là.
There's a film crew on the foredeck there, Ambrogio with his hands on his head, big microphone, light, camera. A little lobster pot going past there. That's probably something similar to what Ambrogio sailed over on his way up the Irish coast without seeing it, getting caught round his keel. So they've got a 4-hour wait before they can go up the channel. So just past low tide right now. More people getting on board. I'm sure amongst all of those backpacks and things that went on board is some fresh food for him. Not sure if we're going to be able to hear this interview. they're all the post-race formalities, taking the measurer back off the boat, or the measurer, the umpire, having checked that all the propeller seals are in place and the right number of sails are on board, safety equipment is intact, anchor seals, fuel, minimum fuel supply, various long list of safety equipment that are imposed on these boats that has to be carried out. We do have the pictures from on board. So here we go.
Des dernières heures dont personne ne pouvait se douter il y a encore quelques heures.
Non, ouais, c'est vrai. Qu'est-ce que je traverse en ce moment? Moi aussi, beaucoup d'étonnement, je ne le cache pas. Enfin, moi, jamais dans la course, il y a un moment où je me suis dit, allez, je vais la gagner. Un peu parce que c'était ma première course en solo Limoca, et un peu parce que, surtout quand on s'est mis tout de suite à la course, pour moi, c'était très très compliqué le départ. Les premiers 2 jours, je plein galère. Et du coup, après, j'ai fait ma course, j'étais content d'être en mer et tout ça, mais jamais de la vie, je pensais de pouvoir rattraper 200 000, quoi. Bon, là, du coup, forcément, il y a quand même énormément de réussites dans ce qui m'arrive. Mais bon, après, à la voile, il y a toujours une petite partie de réussite. Après, là, elle est belle, la partie, quand même.
Always in yacht racing, offshore racing, there's a certain amount of luck involved.
En fait, quand j'ai vu la météo, et à un moment, j'ai vu que Sam, du coup, il faisait un énorme détour pour essayer de contourner la molle. Je me suis dit, bon, on a essayé de couper le fromage, et puis si ça passe, ça passe, quoi.
So
Et en fait, ça
when
passe,
Sam
quoi.
was a long way
Et
ahead
du
of
coup, on
me
s'est
when I
retrouvés
saw
ensemble. Et
that he
après,
was
par contre, je
taking
me
the
dis,
route,
en fait, Violette va
a
faire exactement la même
big detour
chose.
to try and
Elle
avoid
va faire
the
ce que je
calm
fais à
area.
moi
I
à
thought,
Sam,
well,
elle va
I
faire les
can't
deux.
follow him.
En
I've
fait,
got
au
the
final,
chance of the
non,
other
elle
way.
arrive un peu à... nous, on arrive à redémarrer un peu avant et du coup, on arrive à se barrer. Mais et après, là, par contre, moi, j'avais pas pris le masthead. J'avais pas pris des grands voiles de portant. J'ai débarqué les jockey pools, il n'y avait plus rien à bord. Et du coup, ma seule voile de portant, c'est un quad qui fait 230 mètres carrés. Et il fait plus que 100 mètres carrés, plus petit que le spi qu'il avait Sam. Quand je l'ai vu qu'il sortit son spi, je dis je suis mort, quoi. Et en fait, le bateau en config léger comme ça, avec les foils super profonds, il ne faut pas beaucoup de vent pour que ça vole. Et du coup, dès qu'ils sont arrivés 12-13 nœuds, j'allais à 25, quoi. Et du coup, c'était un moment assez impressionnant. Par contre, du coup, j'ai dû faire plus d'empannage, plus de manœuvres. Je suis cassé, quoi. Parce que bien sûr, je faisais 15 degrés plus haut que Sam, quoi.
Alors justement,
So
c'est
the
ça,
choice of
il y a
sails
2 jours,
took
tu nous disais que tu
compromise
étais
in
cuit,
this
que
light
tu
stuff,
étais
but
très douloureux au niveau du dos. Et là, vous vous êtes lancé dans une bagarre d'empannage pour arriver à franchir la ligne. C'était du match racing presque.
Ouais, après, quand on voit qu'effectivement l'opportunité est là, on oublie tout, hein. On oublie toutes les douleurs, toutes les souffrances et on fait juste ce qu'on aime faire, c'est se bagarrer. Et après, le jeu était tellement intense tout le long de la course qu'avoir la possibilité de pouvoir encore jouer ici, ça a été magnifique.
On a l'impression que cette course a été un ascenseur émotionnel pour toi. Il y a eu ce plongeon, il y a eu ces 2 premiers jours, tu en parlais, qui ont été très durs, avec plein de galères, des pilotes qui marchaient pas bien. Et puis il y a ce plongeon quand même phénoménal. Merci d'avoir tout filmé aussi bien, d'avoir aussi bien raconté cette histoire. Et ensuite, on a retrouvé un body avec le sourire, avec plein d'envie. Et pourtant, en t'engageant à l'ouest de l'Irlande, tu disais, je joue pas à la gagne là.
Ouais, c'est vrai que quand même tous les problèmes que j'ai eus, au final, ils m'ont quand même... je suis quand même réussi à les surpasser. J'ai quand même petit à petit pris confiance dans le bateau et en moi, alors qu'effectivement, j'avais vraiment... Après 24 heures de course, j'étais pas loin de me dire, en fait, je m'arrête, quoi. Je peux pas partir au nord sans pilote, que je fais pas de confiance. Du coup, c'est vrai que c'est une histoire qui s'est montée petit à petit. Et puis l'Irlande, c'est pas que je joue pas la gagne. Moi, je veux bien jouer la gagne, mais moi, je joue pas la gagne à tous les coups. Et je me sentais pas prêt pour faire ça. Je me sentais pas prêt. En fait, j'ai compris que voilà, si ça passait par là, de toute façon, c'était sans moi. Et puis à l'ouest, il y avait beaucoup de vent au portant. Ça me faisait aussi kiffer de continuer à surfer cette grosse dépression. Le bateau là, il est incroyable. Et du coup, de me voir, de faire toute une navigation côtière un peu... je vais bien en parler avec les autres, mais un peu en mode dégradé parce que forcément, tu peux pas attaquer comme quand tu es au large parce qu'il y a plein de manœuvres, machin, tu vas pas très bien. Et du coup, ouais, ça a été un peu douloureux parce que, en fait, à un moment, je me suis dit, je vais être tout seul, un peu comme un stupide, quoi. Alors que les autres, en fait, ça passe nickel. Et du coup, j'étais très content qu'à la fin, il y avait Violette et Francesca avec moi. Et au moins, je me suis pas senti tout seul, quoi.
Et alors raconte-nous, parce que c'était aussi une expérience sur un IMOCA très longue, 8 jours, dans des contrées particulièrement nouvelles pour tout le monde. C'était la première fois que des IMOCA allaient en course aussi haut après le cercle polaire.
Ah ouais, il y a un paquet de premières fois. Et ouais, on a monté nord, hein. On est monté très nord effectivement, et à un moment on avait l'impression qu'on s'est rapproché du bout du monde, quoi. Il y avait tout était une espèce de climat assez bizarre. On voyait presque plus rien. On ne savait pas trop où on était, quoi, en fait. Il y avait juste la carte qui nous a rappelé qu'effectivement on était très très nord, et le froid, parce que le froid aussi, c'était quand même assez intense. Mais du coup, c'était comme une espèce de rêve, quoi, que ça finit jamais, parce qu'en plus, ça durait quand même au moins plus que 2 jours, ce temps un peu bizarre. Ça a été cassé seulement par un moment, moi, quand je suis passé proche de l'Islande, j'ai eu un petit apercevoir des sommets enneigés de l'Islande, c'était incroyable. Mais oui, c'est vrai que ça a été une course hyper engagée. On n'a pas eu des conditions, on va dire, prohibitives, mais on a quand même eu 2 fois dans la course des vagues de plus de 3,50 m, c'est quand même déjà assez important. Et moi, ça m'a donné beaucoup de confiance dans ce bateau, parce qu'en fait, je savais qu'il était un bon bateau dans la brise et dans la mer, mais là, le voir qu'effectivement, ces conditions-là, ça passe assez facilement, c'est très agréable.
Bon, bravo, merci beaucoup, Gauthier.
Ouais. Oui, bon, merci.
Quelques mots en italien, peut-être. Raconte-nous tes sensations sur cette première victoire.
Oui. In italiano, è successo veramente, incredibile. L'ultima volta che facevo una regata in solitario era 2 anni fa, ed era alla riva New York, e adesso c'è questa regata pazzesca che mai avrei pensato di vincerla, perché è successo di tutto. Ho avuto un sacco di problemi, dal tuffo al pilota automatico che non funzionava. E poi a un certo punto mi sono ritrovato che avevo quasi 200 miglia di distacco dal primo. In più c'è stata la rotta in Irlanda che ho deciso di passare fuori perché non me la sentivo di passare dentro. Insomma, un sacco di cose che facevano sì che per me era impossibile pensare di poterla vincere, e forse anche per questo che c'ha un gusto ancora più particolare, perché è la prima anche per il nostro team come team a parte, e quindi insomma sono veramente super contento. E a parte queste cose qua, c'è stata la notizia tragica durante la regata. C'è stata la notizia tragica della scomparsa di Charlie Dalin, che io personalmente non conoscevo, ma quando sei in mezzo al mare, stai facendo lo sport per cui lui ha segnato indelebilmente questo sport, credo che ci abbia a tutti un po' toccato. Immagino che Sam a bordo debba essere stato molto molto difficile. E niente, spero, insomma, così volevo fare un abbraccio alla famiglia e a tutte le persone che l'hanno conosciuto. Grazie a voi.
So I don't speak Italian, but I do speak French, so I'm going to try and summarize everything you said there. He had a very difficult first 2 days, lots of technical problems on board the boat, and then obviously catching the fishing net off Ireland, and he is carrying an injury as well, which has not been very nice for him, but at the same time he really enjoyed learning about the boat, and some of the conditions they had was never really crazy wild, but 2 or 3 times they had waves of up to 3.5 meters in wave height, so he hadn't sailed a boat in those conditions before. He knew it was a good boat in those sort of conditions, but there's nothing like sailing them yourself to realize how good the boat is in those conditions, and it's filled him with confidence for the future. he really understands his boat so much better now than he did before. And then in terms of racing the boat, certainly on the way back, he was very relieved to see that he wasn't the only boat that sailed around the west coast of Ireland. He knew that he wasn't particularly confident in being able to sail his boat in those restricted waters down the Irish Sea. He wasn't going to take the risk. He would rather, if it passed that way and they won the race that way, then fair enough. You know, they took the chance and made the decision, and off they went, and that's good. But from the point of view of his own race management, he made the choice to go outside, and he'd do it again. And it wasn't that won him the race, really. The thing that won him the race was all reappearing and being able to catch up with the boats that were ahead of him in the Bay of Biscay that had just sailed into a hole of wind that was sitting over Les Sables-d'Olonne and the whole of the centre of the Bay of Biscay, and this ridge of high pressure that's pushed up from the South Atlantic, from the south of the Atlantic, and has basically been a big barrier across the race course, and the wind has slowly moved them closer and closer to the finish, but in extremely light airs. And as they were travelling at the same speed as this wind hole to the east, they couldn't ever really re-accelerate, and so it's been a very complex last few hours, or last day really, with lots of manoeuvres. Interestingly, he said that he hadn't taken some of the light wind sails with him. He'd gone, he was a bit short on sail area, as it turns out. And when he saw Sam Goodchild beside him pull up his spinnaker, he thought, oh, that's it, I'm done. Yeah, he's going to sail away. But in fact, no, it was not the case. And he's extremely pleased to have been able to have a great battle with a great sailor, as Sam Goodchild, and managed to outsmart him in these last 50 miles to the finish, and won the race. Talking about the conditions of racing, and certainly going that far north, and the surreal situation up at the Arctic Circle for a couple of days either side, the conditions really were like nothing he's ever experienced before. Not many people go that far north. Certainly, no one's ever been up there in a yacht race before, and it was foggy. It was very, very cold at times. Different colours, different sea life. Very unusual for sailors who basically used to sailing the Central Atlantic and the coastal areas, and obviously in Ambrogio's case, the Mediterranean. But he, on the way back, he was relatively close to Iceland, and at one point he could see the mountains with snow on top as he sailed past, and that was extremely impressive to see, and really enriched the experience of sailing the course like that far north. But it's always nice to come back and see warmer climates, and get back to the finish line, and there we are. So, suivez l'arrivée du deuxième skipper. We are going to have the finish of Sam Goodchild very shortly. He is now currently just a few miles or a few hundred meters from the finish line. And we will see the next boat, Asif, has made his last maneuver to the finish line, or maybe not quite the last maneuver. He's doing 8 knots, which is quite a bit faster, and he's currently a bit over 3.5 miles to the finish line. So that's another 20 minutes, and we will see Sam Goodchild. Tune back in.
Il est où? Ah ouais, je le vois.
Welcome back, everybody. Here we are, the finish of the 2026 Vendée Arctique race. You've got in front of you pictures of the second place boat, Massif Santé Prévoyance, sailed by English skipper Sam Goodchild. Sam Goodchild will not be that happy today because since this race started 8 days ago, he has led the whole way round, except for the last few hours. He has at one point had a 200-mile lead on the rest of the fleet, and every time he sailed towards the finish, a big hole of no wind, calms all around him established themselves. He sailed into the holes and everybody else moved up and closed the gap on him, and this kept happening. He took several major decisions, but led the way round. His most significant of those was to sail down the Irish Sea on the return leg from the Arctic Circle, which was a no-brainer from a routing point of view. There was no other choice but to do that if you were serious about doing it. And he came out in front again at the end of that rather interesting maneuver, whereas as we saw, the boat that just won the race had sailed around the outside of Ireland to the west of Ireland. And as the two boats sailed into the Bay of Biscay, we have a situation where the whole of the Bay of Biscay was an area of no wind, and to get to the finish line, which was in that area of no wind, where you had to sail towards the finish line and eventually ran out of wind, and the boats behind caught up. And we had a situation yesterday afternoon where the two boats sailed up beside each other, and the whole race started again, almost within spitting distance of the finish. And for whatever reasons, and Sam will explain this to us later on, he was unable to get the boat going again quite as efficiently in the light winds as Ambrogio was. Maybe that Ambrogio is better in light winds, maybe his boat is a bit better for those kind of conditions. It may be that his sail package was not as efficient, or he had too many choices and made the wrong decisions, where Ambrogio said that he had no choices, so he only had the one sail to use. Anyway, here we are. This is Sam interestingly approaching on port tack from the south, whereas Ambrogio was coming from the west on starboard tack. They both had been manoeuvring quite a lot over the last few hours as they run downwind. There's a light westerly wind, and this boat, which is incredibly fast, one of the quickest boats in the fleet, if not the quickest. This is the boat that won the last Vendée Globe. Regrettably, we lost the skipper of that boat, Charlie Dallin, this week to terrible cancer. And so it's rather poignant that Sam should finish second. He crossed the Arctic Circle in first place the morning that we heard of Charlie's death. And here we are sailing across the finish line in second place. A lot of thoughts of everybody in the community in Les Sables-d'Olonne, and certainly the crew of Massif, who have had to deal with the loss of their great skipper this week. We'll be here in Les Sables-d'Olonne to welcome Sam in, and I'm not sure that coming first or second really makes much difference from the point of view of what they've been through this week, but it would have been nice to win anyway. We can just see Sam's head poking out, looking at his sails. When you've been sailing through the night on your own like this in the dark, your reflexes are set up for a low light level, and then suddenly you approach the finish line, and all the spectator boats come out to see you, TV boats and bright lights on your sails and everything. It takes a bit of time to reaccustom your eyes to the bright light, especially when you're looking for a navigation mark flashing, which is the finish line that they're heading for. So you can see there's still quite a lot of swell. The boat is surfing down these waves, even though there's not much wind. So at the start of this race, Sam relatively quickly got himself into the lead on the first day and positioned himself a bit further offshore and sailed away into a really nice lead, and basically dictated the pace of the race all the way around, followed closely by Elodie Bonfu, who's sailing as effectively the sister ship of this boat, and the two of them really dominated the pace and the direction of this race all the way up to the Arctic Circle and then all the way back down again. And ironically, the two of them were the only two boats to sail through the North Channel and down the Irish Sea. Ironically, sadly, this is when Elodie Bonfu strayed into a forbidden zone, a traffic separation zone, and was copped a 12-hour penalty. You see Sam's head poking out there. And whereas the rest of the fleet, the other 6 boats, sailed around the outside of Ireland, around the west coast. And again, I said it wasn't necessarily there that the race was won or lost. It was they came out pretty much equivalent at the bottom of the Irish Sea, and it was really when the boats started to converge in the Bay of Biscay on the finish line that the wind dropped down. So here we have the massive shore crew in the on board there. See photographer, boat captain, media team. They'll have been up all night and they'll be waiting to see their guy and shake his hand. He's done an incredible job, though. It's some of the load of being the favourite. There we are. Smile on his face. Yeah. So there he is, crossed the line. You think he's crossed the line, not absolutely sure if he's crossed the line. So this boat is a Guillaume Verdier design. It's built by CDK for the last Vendée Globe. And Sam has got a new boat in build as we speak to replace this one. The next race he does with this boat, the Route de Rhum, which starts in October this year from Saint-Malo, will be the last race that this boat does under the Massive colours. And Sam's new boat will be available for him in 2027, which will give him a year and a half to work it up before he tackles the next Vendée Globe. Sailing for Massif is a bit of a life dream for an awful lot of top offshore sailors, and the fact that a non-French skipper has been awarded this project, it speaks highly for Sam's ability and his skills and qualities as a communicator and all-round good guy. And we should be very grateful that we have got an ambassador in our sport like Sam Goodchild, who has bridged the French and non-French offshore sailing worlds and managed to find himself in a position of skippering one of the top French professional sports sailing teams. And he's consistently been at the front of the fleet and remains leader on the overall circuit, the IMOCA Globe Series. Sam's won the first race of the year and has been very much in charge since he stepped on board this boat last year. He won the Round Britain and Ireland race with it. Had a not so successful Transat Café L'Or last year. I think it was third or fourth, which was the first time this boat had not been on the podium for a while. But Charal had a more boat designed more for that course, and this boat is an extremely good all-rounder and has got, in fact, very few weak points. Obviously, was designed for the Southern Ocean and designed for the Vendée Globe, but is quick in all conditions. Has managed to remain more than relevant in the current fast evolution of the IMOCA world. It looks a lot bigger, higher chest than the other boats, but they all weigh pretty much the same and all have the same sail area, same foil package pretty much, and then it's down to the sailor. So he walks along the coach roof and holding on to the lazy jacks. Then stepping back inside to look at his charts, electronic charts, to see if he can visualize where the finish line is.
Ça avance un peu, s'il te plaît. Dans les voiles, s'il te plaît. Je sais pas, c'est bizarre. Sur la voile. Et tu descends tranquillou, Sur la coque, en bas, derrière. Ça éclaire plus rien là. Ça marche plus ou quoi?
You can even see, since we've been watching this boat sailing just for the last few minutes, how the wind has dropped again suddenly as he's got closer to the shore. Very frustrating sailing in these conditions, especially in the dark, and especially when you've got lots of boats around you shining lights on you, because you have to keep trimming the sails, and it's very easy to become disorientated with regards to where the wind is. Obviously, you've got instruments to see that, but the adrenaline of moving sails and watching the wind angles change. He's just putting his hand on his autopilot there. Around his neck is a remote control for the autopilot. So, there we are, he's crossed the finish line. Second place. He'll be very philosophical about this. There's not a lot you can do about it, and Sam's a pretty solid guy in terms of that, and he even quoted earlier saying, we really can only concentrate on the things that we have some level of control over, and frustration of being in the lead with such an impressive lead and dominating this race the whole way around and finishing second. It's been a tricky race, and he's managed to remain on the podium, so not bad. Here comes the shore crew getting on board. Welcome on board for every member of the crew. First people he'll have seen, other than Ambrogio, of course, because I think we saw him earlier yesterday when they pulled up beside each other. Always good to talk to people after 8 days alone. So we'll be furling up the Jenica shortly, and hopefully get the interviewee on the camera crew on board so that we can hear some words from Sam. So if you've just joined us, you're watching Sam Goodchild, who's just crossed the finish line in second place of the 2026 Vendée Arctique. We're in Les Sables-d'Olonne, and the first place boat, La Grande Mapai, crossed, not sure, probably half an hour or so before Sam, having been very much the boat chasing this leader all the way around, and eventually caught him yesterday afternoon and passed him in these light airs as they approached the finish. So there's a jibe. They filled up the Jenica, jibed the boat. And we may well see them. They're actually very close together again, because none of these boats can go up the channel until the tide comes in. So the man in the red jacket getting on board right now is the French Sailing Federation umpire, who's going on board to check propeller seals and safety equipment before the engine is started. The engine propellers are sealed so that even though you use the engine to charge batteries, you can't put it in gear without breaking the propeller seal. And clearly, if the propeller seal is broken, then chances are it was used to propel the boat, which obviously is not the goal. There are other elements on board: the number of sails, the maximum number of sails on board, minimum amount of diesel fuel for safety reasons. These boats have to be able to do, I think it's 5 hours at 6 knots or 6 hours at 5 knots, which equates to about 40 litres of diesel, which has to be on board at the finish. That's purely for safety reasons, in case they need to go and rescue another sailor, or mast comes down and needs to motor to a port.
Vas-y, ouais, si on peut faire les deux là. Si, élargi. Merci.
So Sam Goodchild's offshore racing career started a very, very long time ago, in spite of his young age, and he's now finished Vendée Globe, which he sailed in one of the vulnerables. And we can just see on this chart where we are. That's the blue boat on the right is Sam. In front of him there is La Grande Mapai, but in the top left-hand corner you can see a red boat, and that's the third place boat, and that is Violette d'Orange, and she is approaching fast into the finish line, but she has one more maneuver to do. She's doing about 9 knots currently, and she has about 6 miles to go, so probably another 45 minutes to an hour, because she has another jibe to do, which will lengthen her course a little bit. So we'll probably not see her for another hour. Bit of a debrief going on board there. Sam obviously showing the umpire around the boat, checking for various things, checking fuel, checking the propeller seal, and when they're ready, That's the end of it. We may get the interview with Sam a bit later, but as I said, Violette d'Orange is going to be the third place finisher, and she is probably about 45 minutes away from the finish.
what's that card in your wallet? I thought I
là.
welcome back, everybody. You're looking at third place Initiative Coeur, sailed by the young Violette d'Orange, darling of the last Vendée Globe, approaching the finish line for third place in the 2026 Vendée Arctique. So Violette sailed a pretty solid race, has never really been doing anything out of the ordinary, and is a beneficiary of the penalty that has been taken by Elodie Bonnefoot, who is now quite a bit further back. This is Violette's second solo race in this boat. This was the boat that Sam Davies sailed in the last Vendée Globe, and has been the subject of a transition or transfer from Sam to her over the last winter. They sailed together in the Café L'Or, and Violette has been sailing it on her own since. It's Sam Manoir design, built for the last Vendée Globe, and is managed very carefully in Lorient by her team. As every race goes by, Violette grows more and more confident with this highly innovative and powerful Imoca 6C. It's very, very different from the boat that she herself sailed in the last Vendée Globe, which was a simple daggerboard boat. I say simple. Compared to this, it's simple, but nevertheless, getting a 60-foot Imoca daggerboard boat around the world on your own when you're in your early 20s is no mean feat. She's an incredible talent. Has sailed the Mini 650 class, has sailed the Figaro Veneto 3 class for several years, then set her sights on the last Vendée Globe, and which she finished successfully, but most importantly told the most incredible stories as she went, and became the influencer of the Southern Oceans and a big social media star in France, and has become a household name in France as a result of that. And so it was an obvious step when Sam Davies was effectively retiring from her own illustrious solo offshore racing career that Violette should step in and take this boat on. Third place here, she'll be very pleased with that, because this was perhaps not expected at the start, and she sailed cleanly, sailed smart, hasn't taken too many risks. I don't think she's had any major technical issues. The boat looks great here, and as with all yacht racing, it's judged at the finish line, not before, and here she is. So there's a little bit more wind here than we saw earlier for the finish of Sam Goodchild and Ambrogio Baccari. Possibly going to drop down as she gets in closer to the finish. She actually, I think, overstood looking at the tracker. I think she left her drive a little bit late. She's coming in pretty hot here, reaching up high to try and get to the finish line, which is imminent, which you can hear from the sound of the outboard motors of the support ribs around the side, that she's moving pretty quickly. And so this boat, Initiative Coeur, is a reference in crowdfunding over, I think, 4 Vendée Globes now to help young African children with heart problems get their heart issues resolved surgically. And that's why always in the mainsail of this boat there is a artwork of a young heart suffering child, something that's worked very well and has been a role model for many other teams in terms of using a foundation to get things going. You can really see this boat moving really fast. It's equally dramatic in the in the dark because it's not something you see very often. Flat water, a little bit of surfing, but relatively flat water. No real background because it's dark. J3 staysail set up inside the Code Zero. Very different sail plans we've seen on all of these boats. And yeah, just a few meters an hour away from the finish line. My track is saying 1 mile, but I think it's a lot less than that now. Yeah. She's going to be up on her foils at this rate, if she isn't already. She's ripping along here. So the flashing light at the top of the mast, as opposed to a tricolour light, is because the wing mast rotates through about 6 degrees either side of the alignment of the boat, and so to have a tricolour up there would mean that when you rotate the wing mast, the alignments would all be wrong. So the navigation lights are at deck level, and the flashing masthead light is to give visibility over a long range to people watching this boat coming at them, and they understand it's a high-speed thing. Yeah, you can see the leeward, just see the tip of the leeward foil there cutting the surface of the water from time to time. Doing about 15 knots there. But beginning to heel over a bit. As I said, I think she overstood that, left that last jibe a little bit late, and now she's having to head out more and more and to get to the finish line, the risk of missing it altogether. So sailed a bit more distance at the end, but the wind seems to have filled in a bit more now, so she may have been caught out by a shift as well. Very hard to judge these sometimes in the dark with all of those street lights behind you. Obviously there's onboard computer to help you with the ley lines, but yeah. There we are. That was the finish line. I think, maybe not. No, she was trying to get up around the back of a fishing boat that we just saw there. Yeah, so she's finished. Now be building up her sails, getting ready to welcome on board. There's her shore crew already on board, or at least 1, 2. So there's now a nice battle going on for fourth place between Francesca Klapšić and Elodie Bonnefoes. So that's Elodie Bonnefoes sailing Association Petit Prince Keguener and Francesca Klapšić sailing 11th Hour Racing. The two of them crossed each other just quite recently, about 20 minutes ago, and 11th Hour is in the south, and they jibe in. Elodie Bonnefoes is in the north, just south of Ile-Dieu, currently 22 miles away from the finish line, and yeah, it's all on for fourth place. So here's the team, some of the partners. See Patrice Ronette there, and hugging everybody for another incredible job done. This is a great result for Violette. She'll be very pleased with this. Again, a lot of these new younger sailors sailing these very, very complex racing machines, much more complex than their first boats, and building in confidence before the route to run. There she is, Violette coming around to the other side of the boat. Third place. I can't remember exactly how old she is. She's 22 or 23 or 24 or something like that. Incredible young woman. Really a reference and an incredible role model for so many people in this country and in the offshore racing world. A nice balance of everything. Super sincere in everything she does. And clearly an incredible sailing talent.
Mets ton appareil devant mon... Vous me dites quand vous voulez décrocher, filmer une clope.
On peut peut-être se mettre un poil plus... te rapprocher de son axe un peu pour s'écarter de l'autre. Non, justement, tu te rapproches de l'axe de son bateau un petit peu derrière.
Telegenic has foiled up the J3. They are, all three boats are out now here together on the, having crossed the finish line, but waiting for the tide to come in sufficiently so that they can go up the channel in Les Sables-d'Olonne, which coincidentally will be in daylight. And that will be the next part of our live, starting at 7:30, so in 2 hours' time. Eight days at sea. It's not that long, but it's a long old slog. They haven't had much rest, these people. Certainly not in the last 2 days. It's been incredibly complex dealing with these light airs. It's often a lot more demanding to sail in light airs than it is in the heavy stuff, because you're always concentrating on sail trim, making sure the boat's going at its best, because light airs often is associated with shifty winds, which means you've got to keep trimming the sails to suit that, or altering the course of the boat to get the best angles to the wind and maintain the momentum. So all sails furled up there now. Foil still extended. You see the big white knife sticking out the side there. That's the port foil. Another one on the other side. And you have to imagine that when the boat's heeling, all of that's under the water. There we are, over the finish line, quite near the entrance. The blue boat to the south is Massif Saint-Berchild, and the green boat just to above Violette d'Orange is Alexandre Mapai, the winner. And so those three boats and the other two that you can see in the top left and bottom left of the screen. Top left is Elodie Bonnefoes and Keguener, Association Petit Prince, and the bottom left is Francesca Klapšić. So Elodie has made her last manoeuvre for the finish line, and I think I think that 11th hour still probably has 2 jibes to go. So I think Elodie Bonfou is going to cross in 4th place, which will be some consolation from the 2nd place that she was in before she started her penalty. So Elodie Bonfou copped a penalty of 12 hours for sailing into a traffic separation zone in the North Channel, the bit of water between Ulster, Northern Ireland, and Scotland. Southwest Scotland's pretty narrow, and there's a shipping lane down the middle, which leaves an even narrower corridor to sail through, which is one of the complex parts of this course. Was a choice that Elodie and Sam Goodchild made to sail down the Irish Sea, whereas all of the other boats on the return from the north, including Violette d'Orange, sailed around the west coast of Ireland. A less lower risk route, especially when you're not as confident with the boat, or you hadn't prepared the route down the Irish Sea, which is a notoriously busy part of, a lot more busy than the other around the west coast of Ireland. Anyway, there we have it. That's the end of the live coverage of the finishes. I said we'll be back for the Channel Parade at 7:30. See you then.